TMO, too many options in Microsoft 365. What's really fun is I actually had that slide hidden because that was an old one. So now we know that Present in Teams doesn't respect our hidden slides. All right, have to talk to the product group about that. Well, thank you very much for those of you that are here. Kat, that was a phenomenal session on Viva Insights. Thank you for that. And thank you for putting together this Women in Tech event. I'm thrilled to be here speaking. This is the intro slide that was supposed to be up because it's fancy with all the apps on the big question mark. I was inspired by the Riddler recently with his big question mark cane. But my goal in this session, not to go super tech in depth on any particular app, but just for us to have a conversation about when do we use what? Because as we all know, there are a lot of apps inside of Microsoft 365, and a lot of them feel like they overlap. So let's talk about when do we use what? How do we know? If we're not sure about even getting started, where do we start having those conversations? If we have never met before, my name is Joy Apple. I am a Microsoft MVP and a modern work strategist, also chief of operations at Pate Group. We're a consulting company. We focus on Microsoft 365 all day. Sometimes it feels like all night. Been in this game for about 15 years now. That clock's going to tick up soon. And I have to say, this is the most exciting time to be working with Microsoft products and technologies. The things we can do now, we only dreamed about doing even 6 or 7 years ago. It's really exciting. So thank you for being here. And let's jump in, because I think we can all agree back in the day, life was a lot simpler. There weren't a lot of options, which made the decision-making process much easier. If we needed to communicate with someone, we would probably just pick up the phone and give them a call, send an email, or if we were super fancy, we had, was it Skype? Before that, it was Link or the Office Communication Server. Anybody remember OCS? Maybe anybody that old? Come on now, don't leave me out here. Document collaboration was pretty darn easy. I see hands, yes. Document collaboration, if we had SharePoint, was handled in SharePoint, or it was on the file share, or we had FTP sites, or, and let's be honest, this still happens today, we used Outlook for a lot of document collaboration, sending those attachments out to the world, and then having to put all those edits back together. But modern times call for modern tools, and Microsoft 365 has definitely taken modern collaboration to a whole new level. We can start from scratch and create these amazing presentations, documentations, automated flows. It's just a beautiful process, and we as users of the technology are empowered and equipped above and beyond from the way tool sets were before. Kathy, I see you before SharePoint. Oh, what a sad time, right? SharePoint makes everything better. This is an older image of the periodic table of Microsoft 365. I got this from jump2365.com, but I love it because it really does give us that kind of overall view of all the different options that we do have inside of Microsoft 365. Task tracking. Right? We need to track our tasks. We should be tracking our tasks somehow, some way. I'll confess this Post-it note is still one of my favorite ways to do. But Microsoft gives us to do Outlook tasks, planner. And when we're just coming into the platform, or if I as a end user feel I got to figure this out on my own, which one do I use? Well, what about the little option inside of OneNote that lets me create tasks lists there? Is that the same as using one of these? I don't know. Well, if I'm going to do document storage, document sharing, document management, I've got SharePoint, I've got OneDrive. We'll say I have Teams because we do stuff with documents inside of Teams, but we know that's really SharePoint. Well, what about Yammer? Yammer uses SharePoint to store the files that go on it. So could I use Yammer as a document management tool? Should I? Outlook doesn't go away, it's everywhere. And if I need to communicate with people, am I supposed to use Teams? Am I supposed to use Yammer? Am I supposed to send an email in Outlook? What am I supposed to do? And when we start getting so deep in this, it gets to the point where we're frustrated and our business users get frustrated. What the heck am I supposed to use? So from the technology perspective, from the IT perspective, this gives us a time, little like any we've had in the past, to come and partner with the business. Say, I hear you. And I hope you do hear your business users. They are your great ally. And you have a chance to position the business for success in ways we've really not had before. How does the business need to work with their colleagues and their co-collaborators? Our business users that we're trying to help, are they just working inside of the organization? Or do they have procedures and operations that happen outside of the organization? Are they just sending info somewhere and whoever gets it, they just do whatever they want with it? Doesn't matter at that point? Or is it a collaborative process? Does there need to be real-time back and forth communication as stuff's getting done? Or no? Do we just kind of work in our own silos and then come back together and we have a product? Those are the questions we can start asking the business to really get to the heart and soul of what tool do we need to use to accomplish our given tasks. I come from a government background. I used to work with NASA quite a bit, and it was always the bring me a rock game. That's what we called it. Bring me a rock. The business needs something. And if it's just an email that says, we as the business need to collaborate. Okay, you have a telephone, you have chat, you have email. Can't you collaborate with that? I don't know. Just, I need this thing. Okay, here's your thing. No, that rock's too big. That rock's too small. It's the wrong color. I said blue, but I didn't mean navy. I meant azure, right? What do you need? So we can ask those questions. And the great thing about it, and it's job security, is Microsoft 365 is a Swiss Army knife of our workplace. SharePoint is the really, really, really big blade in that Swiss Army knife, right? It's the heavy lifting tool. All of our documents, if we're really leveraging Microsoft 365 effectively, all of the document management storage happens inside of SharePoint. OneDrive, that's just baby SharePoint. Teams, documents go into Teams shared documents, right? It's all connected. Yammer communities have a SharePoint site backing them up. Hopefully we're not emailing attachments very often for internal collaboration. We share a link that's hopefully in OneDrive or SharePoint, right? We go from there and start to get to what the business actually needs. And there's really not a cookie cutter solution, right? Because we've got options. Finance is going to work very differently than marketing, which is going to work very differently than training, which is going to work very differently than HR, which, as we all know, works very differently than IT. That cookie cutter is not going to serve us very well. And if you are the introverted IT professional that just really preferred the olden days of I got a ticket, I fulfilled the ticket, go away, right? Now's the time to hone those skills. Now's the time to find an extroverted IT professional to be your friend and go talk with the people in the business. So who are we working with? Who is the business that we're trying to help? What are they doing? Who are they working with? If we look at the audience, that can drive us towards the correct tool set. Are we working with me, myself, and I? Maybe you. Or is it we? It's not me, it's we. Well, we all know that teams work makes the dream work. So we can go from me to we, or is it all of us collectively, the whole organization? What are we trying to accomplish? Who are we working with? If it's me, myself, and I, maybe you, maybe a few of you. Now I'm from the South. I was born in Alabama. Well, I was born in Florida, raised in Alabama. And we would say, it's not all y'all. It's just me, maybe one or two of you. OneDrive is the go-to tool for that. OneDrive gives me my place to work with my personal work stuff. Maybe it's not ready to go to Teams yet. It's not ready to be on a SharePoint site. It may never go to an all org-wide SharePoint location, but it's mine. And it technically belongs to the organization. It's a work asset. OneDrive. OneDrive is beautiful. It gives me the ability as the owner of that piece of information to keep it secure just to me or to share it with one or few individuals to get help working on it, maybe a sanity check. When I start working on a presentation for a session or a customer, I'm doing a training, something like that, I might send that slide deck to one or two colleagues or coworkers and ask them, hey, could you just give me some pointers? Does this slide make sense to you? How does this feel to you? But I own it, right? It's mine to manage the permissions of. And once people give me their feedback, I can kick them back out. And I'll tell you a brief story. OneDrive actually changed my life. That may sound overly dramatic, but it's true. I'm going to make a small confession here. Some of you may be able to relate to me. I am a recovering desktop dumper. I still sometimes fall back into bad habits, but it's nothing like it used to be. But I tend to work fast. I tend to move to the next thing rather quickly. I drive fast, I eat fast, I talk fast, I walk fast, I work fast. And when I'm inside of a document, especially if I've just started it and it's time to save it, remember the olden days, it'd be like, well, where do you want to save it? Like, I don't know. I'll just throw it on my desktop and I'll come back to it later. Because your desktop's always there, right? Any other desktop dumpers or recovering desktop dumpers? I mean, this is a safe space. If that's you, feel free. Thank you. I see you. Well, a few years ago, probably about 4 years ago now, I had a laptop that was just dying. It was relatively new, but it would just shut down randomly. Typically, it would boot back up, but it got to then it wouldn't. And sometimes it would charge and sometimes it wouldn't. And I was like, oh, crap. I got to do something about this. So I went and I grabbed everything that was on the desktop and I put it in a folder and I kind of did a little bit of organization inside of my OneDrive. And that moment, it was a critical life-changing moment for me because I had to be able to get to that content, whether or not that laptop was going to work. So I was able to get to it on my backup laptop, and it became rather freeing because I was working from home at that point anyway. This was well before the pandemic. I could have my mobile device in my pocket and go maybe walk because I was trying to solve a problem and I'd be thinking, and my boss could message me and go, hey, Joy, I need this document. Can you send it, please? Yes, I can because I have the OneDrive mobile app. I can get to my content no matter where I am or what I'm doing. That was amazing. And if we have first-line workers, frontline workers, we have people that are in the field and they have content they need to be able to fill out, get to, work on, whether it's in SharePoint, OneDrive, having those mobile apps, having that anywhere access is an amazing thing. And I think the pandemic, we can all agree, has forced us to reevaluate how we work. But by giving us that anywhere access, helping us to embrace it, whether we wanted to or not, is really taking us a long way. So that's my OneDrive spiel. A lot of us have OneDrive backing up the desktop now and the My Documents on our PCs, which is phenomenal. Just keep in mind, it is your work stuff, not necessarily where we keep all of our cute cat pictures, though maybe I do. But it's a place where we can manage the content that we need to work on privately. But we all know teamwork makes the dream work, and Teams is for teamwork. So we come into Teams, that's where we work together securely with what Microsoft refers to as that inner loop. I actually have that slide in this deck, we'll get to it. But when we're working together on task-based, role-based work, Teams is where we go for that. And we all know SharePoint and Teams are hashtag better together. So we have those two tools where we can bring the functional business area of HR, the functional business areas of accounting, finance, operations, safety, give them secured workspaces. They come together, can communicate there. I love how working inside of Teams has almost completely eliminated the forked email thread. Because if I communicate with my team in Teams, everyone's there Everyone's in the loop. We all know what's going on. It's not relying on Joy to remember to put the 10 people in the team on the 2 thread because Joy doesn't remember. Joy gets halfway there, sends it, and then goes, oh, shoot, I forgot the other 3 people. So then, you go forward it, and these guys know what's going on here, and these guys know, and then you're in the middle trying to keep it all sorted, right? Using Teams for teamwork, we're out of that game. It's phenomenal. Well, what about us as a corporation? SharePoint communication sites are the best place, Joy SharePoint, so I'm a little biased, the best place for us to put that information that I, as an employee, should be able to get to. So we can create.
We see you, but we don't hear you.
Okay, I'm back. My internet dropped.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Sorry about that. We're having storms blow through, so it's been interesting.
Problem.
Do you still see my slides?
The slide deck is showing, and we hear you clear now.
Perfect, perfect. Great. Sorry about that. But SharePoint communication sites are the perfect backbone for our intranet. We can create those sites, and the whole goal behind those communication sites, small group of people organize, curate, and manage a site that a larger group, typically the entire organization, has read access to. So HR can put all the information that I, as an employee, need to have access to. I can consume it, act on it if that's what's required, or just be aware of it and go on about my day. It also gives HR a place on the backside, the Teams site, the Teams piece, on the other side of the intranet, that department private side. They work on those assets that eventually get published to that company public area. So by using SharePoint and Teams, we're creating this very security-rich environment where we can work on stuff and then move it out to that company public area. Yammer. Let's talk a little bit about Yammer. Let's talk a little bit about Teams as we go through. Yammer is great for those corporate communities. I have a customer that desperately wants to engage the entire organization with the safety committee. And Yammer is proving to be a beautiful solution for that. Because they want to be teams, because that's a little bit more teamwork based. They want it to be open and engaging in a place where everyone from all walks of the organization can come in and engage. And I think that's where this slide, it's been around from Microsoft for years now, the inner loop, the outer loop of the people we work with at work. Where do these different tools fit in? Well, we see Teams for the inner loop, right? We create our task-driven workspaces there. Yammer outer loop, I could see it slide to the inner loop here and there if that's needed or would be useful. All the stuff's right in the middle of SharePoint, and Outlook gives you that really broad reaching ability to be able to reach people on the inside, the people you maybe don't collaborate with very often, the outer loop, and then people even outside of the organization. So it's a really nice approach if you start thinking about who are my collaborators on my inner loop. Here are the people I just engage with because we work inside the organization. And then Outlook lets you span both of those scenarios. Now we'll say, I don't know if my GIF's going to work in Teams or PowerPoint Live. We'll find out. Teams does support 5 org-wide teams, and you can have up to 10,000 users. And that does start to feel like perhaps it's stepping on Yammer's toes just a little bit, because isn't that kind of what our communities are for? Not so much our teams. but I'm a consultant. So I guess I have to say, it depends. My arrow. There we go. Yammer is a great place for the social aspect of work. Now, I do caution my clients when they start thinking about building up these large, broad-reaching communities inside of Yammer about making them required for everyone, because not everyone wants to have fun at work, and that's okay. But it can go beyond fun and social. It can give us a way to really reach out, not just push information to people, but kindly and gently pull information from people too. It gives us a way to connect. If you do have org-wide communities where you're engaging, having conversations with employees across all spectrums of the organization, it's a wonderful way to start to bring more of a sense of culture and community, not to overuse the word, to the workplace. And that Yammer web part fits beautifully on a company homepage if that's part of your culture, to get people interested on the latest news, or maybe the president of the company's blog, or even the photo of the week, if that's something you use to engage with people. It lets you share success and celebrate with each other in the organization. Whereas on the team side of things, and it seems to be, do we want Yammer or Teams? I'm saying there's room for both in the organization. That's where we go to work with our coworkers. I wrote a blog for AvePoint recently about the Yammer conundrum. And one thing that I think the pandemic's really shown us is that all of our notifications are centered in one app. It starts to burn us out really quickly, right? We start to get that notification fatigue. Everything got moved into Teams over the last couple of years, which means all of our notifications come out of Teams. And it's very difficult for us to distinguish when it's a pop-up or a ping or a ding. Is this task-based? Do I need to respond to this very quickly? Is it high priority? Or is it something fun, just a quick friendly chat? But if we take the fun and put it in Yammer, and the stuff that if I don't do it, I'm going to get fired, and we put that in Teams, that gives us a much better way to be able to instantly be able to distinguish what's my priority, what's my want to know. My want to know is in Yammer. My need to know must do's come out of Teams. So it really starts to build out a very modern information architecture right in front of us inside of the organization. So beyond the apps, back to the audience, it's going to also help us if we think, how do our teammates work? Does your group work really, really well, fast-paced? Maybe a group chat, posts inside of your channels and your teams. Do you need to be able to do calling very quickly? Just hop on, have that channel meeting, and then go on and get work done? Or do you have people on your team that work better just going through a queue? I do. I have one of my consultants. They just work better out of their email queue. Sometimes we do have to meet people where they are, right? We can't force people all the time to break their own way of working. So we can share to Outlook or bring information and share to Teams. So we kind of have some cross Outlook Teams work going for some of our teams at my company. If it's time to engage the organization, we have live events, we have webinars, we do meetings. Do we do email blasts? What works best? Well, we live in a world where we don't have to pick just one. So again, we can look beyond the apps and look at the audience, look at the people. If we need to have a very formal town hall, the live events that we can do out of Yammer and Teams, beautiful. Much more formal than this right here. We could unmute, we can have conversations, we can turn our cameras on, really join in the conversation. Or we could be more formal in a live event and just let the speaker and presenter be the one that kind of takes center stage. Personally, I love for main corporate communication to happen on our SharePoint homepage and our communication sites. But there's no reason why we can't occasionally follow up those big pieces of information with email blasts. Make sure we're getting people where they are. So we start to break down the architecture. SharePoint right? We have those communication sites where if I am an employee, I have read access to that. I can go get to the information that's important for me. And can I just say, Microsoft Search is doing an amazing job. The way we've consolidated search across all of the applications is beautiful. I love that I can be on the SharePoint start page and I can find information. Doesn't matter what team, what site, where it is, it will come to me. SharePoint communication sites give you really good access to all that corporate information. Then I have my inner loop on my team sites, still SharePoint, but I've got my sites where we can do our document management, work with versioning, easily attach flows and automation to our documents. If I need to do quick, fast and furious editing and collaboration with my team, I just hop over into Teams. I think most of us pretty much live in Teams these days anyway. And then hub sites can come in and bring that architecture together. I kind of joked the other day that hub sites are like the force that can bind our related sites together. It gives us really great unified navigation, focused search scopes, and I can roll up content to those main hub sites very, very easily. Yammer gives us that really clean place for the communities to engage, can be org-wide, can be corporate campaigns, areas of interest. Love the Yammer app in Teams. Don't we love too how Microsoft has seen the need to provide the single pane of glass? So I can get to my SharePoint sites, I can get to my Yammer communities, I can get to my Teams in Teams for Teams, all from one place with Viva connections. Beautiful. But whatever we're trying to get to, the intranet is the entry point. A lot of us have it configured so when an employee opens up the supported browser of choice, that SharePoint homepage is what opens up. But how many of us start our day in Teams now? I know I do. I don't click on the browser. I go to Teams to see what I missed the last time I was in Teams when I logged off the night before. With Viva Connections, I can get to my SharePoint homepage or hop into a team or go to a Yammer community, all from right inside of Teams. If I can tab to it in Teams and I can link to it in SharePoint, I know I can create a very easy single pane of glass for my entire organization. So with SharePoint and Teams as the intranet entry point, that's hard to say. I know I can get my people to their documents, files, and the important content that they need to get to day in and day out. I can get them to those other Microsoft applications, Planner, Forms. Forms is one of my very favorite Microsoft apps. Stream, Power BI, even Whiteboard. All of those are available for us through links or tabs. And those mission critical third-party applications, such as DocuSign, GitHub. If you have a corporate YouTube channel or you use YouTube channels for training internally, easy peasy. And those other SharePoint sites that we need to get to day in and day out, cross collaboration sites, or maybe it's important landing pages that are built up in our company public intranet. So this is how we do it at Pate Group. So here's another thing that I'm not fond of. I cannot zoom in. So this looks pretty little bitty here in Teams, present in Teams, PowerPoint Live. But the landscape of Microsoft 365 is very, very flat these days. We have a lot of apps, and you can almost say it's three-dimensional, but yet it's flat. It's like a paradox inside of the intranet. But I've got color-coded boxes here. Maybe you can snuggle up to your monitor really close. But I've got SharePoint and Teams and Yammer side by side in my information architecture. Because every one of those things is going to need security, it's going to need ownership, it's going to need governance, and it has a space inside of our architecture. Because I got my SharePoint sites, your communication sites create clean, there's no Office 365 group attached to a communication site. But if I build a Yammer community, I get a SharePoint site along with it. If I build a team, I get a SharePoint site along with it. So in my mind, if anything's creating a site, needs to be taken in consideration for our intranet architecture. by building up that very flat landscape, not creating subsites and nesting things down in a deep architecture, it positions us as the business to be able to leverage all of these rich features that Microsoft has created for us. In Yammer, I can have links to important critical documents over on the side. SharePoint, I can put a web part to my Yammer community right there on the site. Beautiful, very engaging. If you haven't seen the new Yammer web parts, I encourage you to check them out. Teams, right? Teams is for teamwork. Probably said that a dozen times now in the last 40 minutes. But from there, I can link to or tab to the important information that I need to be able to get to as an employee. So it is flat, but it's very, very dynamic. And keep in mind, if you're coming from an older architecture or an architecture that perhaps still has subsites in it, you can't use those really great tools like Teams to come alongside those workspaces. We need to elevate those subsites out so we can groupify them, get our group, and then attach them over to a team. And you're fully leveraged to be able to take advantage of all the good stuff we got going on. But it takes planning. And planning can definitely take time and conversation. By knowing what the business needs, we're able to equip them for success. But we can't truly know what they need unless we sit down and have that conversation with them. What are they trying to accomplish? What tools are they using now? And maybe why aren't they able to get their desired results with the tool sets that they have? It could be a simple setting. It could be that they're having to do a lot of back and forth emailing because they didn't know they could ask for an externally shared site. And by creating that one thing, you could eliminate a lot of extra work, a lot of extra steps, and duplication of content that's not really necessary in the modern landscape. All right. I have finished just a little bit under time. So we have time for any conversation or questions, and I've got my contact information here as well. Any questions or observations? All right. I see one here. I see Microsoft doing many communities. Oh, go ahead. Many communities with outsiders through Teams as well, where it used to be Yammer centric. Yes, that's very true. I've got a new project coming online right now to do an externally shared Yammer community, which used to be much more common. But yeah, agreed. We tend to see that in Teams more. My use case for my customer going to Yammer is it's for a corporate board, so not everyone's an employee. And it's not really work-based, right? It's volunteer-based. And they want engagement. They don't want them to have to go between SharePoint and Teams. They want that more consistent interface of going to the SharePoint site with the Yammer web part on the page, because it's going to be easier for, we'll just say, a less tech-savvy audience. That's how we'll put that.
Does anybody else has a question for Joe? You can unmute and ask directly if you want.
Please do.
They're all quite shy, I think.
That's okay. All
So,
right.
I didn't see any questions. So thanks for your session, Joy.